I am one of the co-hosts for PM Power. And so this is a show that Lee Lambert and we created just to come in to give 30 minutes of some power tips on a particular topic. So we designed this show specifically for project managers, people managers, team leaders who really want to elevate your projects, elevate your performance, elevate your results, elevate your career, all of that. So welcome. And I'm sorry, so Lee Lambert is not able to join us today. He is just being a complete world traveler, and he is actually in the Bahamas. So he's speaking at PMI chapters all over the world. So good for him. So he sends his regrets, and he said that he owes us a strategy. And I said, yes, you do owe us at least one strategy. So I'm going to hold him to it. If you're listening and you're with me live, fabulous. So glad to have you here. Feel free to use the chat box if you have any questions. If you're listening on the recording and watching, fabulous. So glad you're here. So a little bit about the format of the program. Let me just kind of share this. So I'm going to give some power tips on how to grow your relevance, your influence today. And so I'm going to give you 3 power tips on how to do that. I'm going to share some personal stories, some personal lessons learned. And then I'm going to open it up for questions. So if you have a question, you can write it in the chat box. I'll get to it at the end. And so I'll be here for 5 or 10 minutes for that. And then just to let you know that the show is being recorded. It's going to be posted on YouTube, and we're going to promote it on LinkedIn. So if you watch part of the show and you want to watch the rest, or if you watch all the show and you just want to watch it again, you can go to my profile on LinkedIn, which is Sherri Thomas, or Lee Lambert's profile. And we're going to post that within 24 hours. Okay. So let's get to it. I want to get to it. And the first power strategy to really elevate your influence is really talking about the level of problems that you're solving, or the level of problems that your team is solving. There's this notion that we need to portray that everything is going just fine in our projects and our programs. And that actually builds a level of distrust with our company leaders, because they know, and we know, and everyone knows, that there are problems with all programs. And that's really why we get hired. That's why we get a paycheck, is because we need to solve problems. If there weren't any problems on our team or in our program or with our customer, we wouldn't have a job. So we need to be able to have some transparency and talk about the problems that we're solving. And we need to show that we are in the process of solving big, beefy, chunky problems. And the bigger the problem that you're solving, the more credibility you have as a team leader and a program manager. And let me be clear, talking about solving problems is not complaining. So I don't think complaining is okay. Complaining is not okay. And especially to leaders, especially to your manager's manager or your leadership chain. It's not complaining. It's framing a problem that you and your team are in the process of solving. That's what's going to shape their perception of you. That's what's going to build your leadership presence. That's what's going to build your leadership style. That's what's going to set you apart from your peers, is the level of problems that you're working on and that you're solving and that you've already solved. So let me go into that just a little bit deeper. A lot of times as project managers, what we do is we solve a big problem and then we move on to the next big problem. And then we solve that and then we move on to the next big problem. But what I want you to think about, and I want you to really capture, is I want you to be able to capture succinctly a problem that you've already solved, a big problem that you've already solved. And then add to it the problem or problems that you're currently solving with your team. And then the vision of what you see coming down the pike. Maybe it's another problem in the future. And so you've got this kind of snapshot. It's just a snapshot of one or two beefy, chunky problems that you've overcome, what you're looking at solving today, what you're working on right now, and also in 6 months or in 3 months or whatever the timeline is, then this is the next big beefy problem that you and your team are going to tackle. This right here gives you credibility. This right here lets leaders go, oh, okay, she's got this. Or okay, he's got this. The leader then doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, I have to think, or they have to think of every single issue that's going to come down the line for you. And that's why a lot of times when we do go into presentations, we get grilled. We get spears thrown at us because they think that they have to take all the pressure of identifying all the problems and solving them. So this is one way to not only build your credibility and your influence, but it's also just a way of building trust. So if you're thinking, this is great, but you don't know me. I thought I'd go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Sherri Thomas. I started out my career as a DJ and in radio. I've had this really fun swirly twirly career. I've worked for 3 Fortune 500 companies. So I worked inside one of the Fortune 100 companies for a while, and I started out as a project manager. I then went to program manager and went to team leader. I eventually evolved and I worked as a leadership coach, helping our high performers and our managers and leaders get to that next level in their career. So I started doing that on my own. I have my own company that does that. I'm president of Your Leadership Lab. I've written a couple of books. One of them was on Amazon's top 10 list for personal branding books. I've been interviewed a lot of different media. I've been in the Wall Street Journal 13 times. I've been in the Washington Post 8 times, all for career strategies, leadership strategies. If this interests you, I do have on my website right now for this week, I'm giving away a free copy of your personal leadership career scorecard. And so you can just go to my website, yourleadershiplab.com, and you can grab that right now. And it's just, I created it because I needed a way a few years ago, and you might need a way now to really kind of assess and get everything out of your brain about what's going on in your career. And so it's a tool, it's a scorecard that immediately helps you just assess and analyze where you are in your career. It helps you assess your alignment with your manager. It helps you assess career of your peers, things like that. So anyway, that's on my website right now. If you want to download it, you can just go to yourleadershiplab.com and get a free copy right now. So let's go ahead. Actually, I needed just a quick sip of water. Hold on. Somebody asked me in my last webinar if I'm drinking gin. No, I'm not drinking gin. This is water. I live in Arizona, and so my voice gets really parched from talking. Okay, so let's go into power move number 2. And that is, you want to be viewed. You want to be viewed as a leader. If you want to build your influence, you want to be viewed as a leader. And if that's a stretch for your mind, if you're like, yeah, no, I don't, Sherri, I get it. Then think of it as you want to be viewed as like a mentor and a coach. So company leaders, they want the best employees. They want the absolute best employees, most experienced employees, have expertise, have mastery. And so I want you, what I'm offering you today is I want you to think of ways that you can take those great lessons learned and part of your mastery and teach it to others inside the company. That's what I want you to do. I want you to share it and teach it to others. Leaders like that. That's a great way to build your influence and to start shaping yourself as a leader. And so let me give you a couple of ways and a couple of ideas to do that. So thinking about the problems that you've solved, you've already tackled them on your team. Thinking about just how to package those lessons learned and maybe those best practices. How could you share that? I know that if I asked you today, can you share 3 tips on something? I know you can. So I want you to think about that. What can you share? What can you share? 3 tips on what? And then here's what I want you to do. I want you to internally, I want to make sure that you're doing project updates to your manager. If your manager is not asking for a project update, I want you to just do it. So maybe it's once a week. Maybe it's every other week. I definitely think it should be at least every other week, at least twice a month. You should send out an update. And if you're not already doing this, then ask your manager if you can include on that email your manager's manager, your customer. Think about the team members that you have and their manager. Think about your leadership chain. And an update really is talking about maybe the 1 or 2 challenges you've already solved and the big challenge or problem that you're working on solving now with your team, and the results of what you expect when you launch the tool or you launch the program or the product or whatever it is. Now, I did this. So I'm never asking you to do something I didn't do. I did this, and it was pretty interesting what happened. So I was working in IT. I was a technical program manager, a technical project manager. And so I was doing this every other week, sending out an update. And then one day my manager's manager wrote to me and she said, "Hey, Sherri, can you give a presentation, just an update on this to her manager staff?" So that's a VP. And I got nervous. And I said, so I called her on the phone and her name was Kim. And I said, so what do you want me to do? And she said, just this certain piece of my update was really interesting to her. And she thought it'd be interesting to her boss, the VP staff. And so she just wanted me to create like 1 or 2 slides, just come in for like 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, and just share this certain piece of the project with her. So I said, yeah, great. So I went in and I remember I did that update and, nobody said anything. Everybody's very quiet in the IT world. And I remember getting off that meeting. It was a virtual meeting. And I thought, I have no idea how that went. I don't know if I'm going to be fired. I don't know if I'm going to be promoted. I have no idea how that went. Well, 2 weeks later, I got a direct message from the VP. And he was asking me if I would come in and give that exact same presentation to our CIO. And so I did that. And because I did this, I got tapped on the shoulder for one of our most highly visible projects to be the PM. And it catapulted my career. And it all started with doing updates, regular, consistent updates about problems that we've solved, about the current problem that my team and I are tackling, and about the results that we expect to get. So power strategy too is also about just finding ways that once you do an update, and the update's just on email, you can put it in email on a slide if you want, whatever your communication style is. But then it's thinking of a way to repurposing it. So I gave you an example of a non-voluntary way to repurpose it, which is my manager's manager came to me. But another thing you can do is you can think about how could you repurpose that? And could you put that update in a slide or two? And what I'm offering you is then going to your manager and saying, you know, we just solved this problem and I'd be happy to talk about it in your staff meeting, you know, for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just give a brief update on it. Almost always my manager was like, yeah, great. And I would take it then to my manager's manager and say, I'd be happy to share this if you think it's helpful. So the key, I think I have found for me, one of the key strategies with this is the intention. And what do I want to say? Like my attitude. So I never went out thinking and portraying that, hey, I'm really smart. Hey, I have the best team and we're smart. So here are 3 things we found. I always offered it as just a way of, hey, if you think your team might find this helpful, I'd be happy to share more about it. If your team might find this helpful, I'd be happy to share more about it. And when I did that with my customers and I did that with our leaders, it was incredible. It's almost always a yes. And I know it might take more time. I know it takes a little bit of effort, but it's not that much time and it's not that much more effort because you've already written it into an update. So we're just talking then about repurposing it. So it's not going into a whole meeting and sitting there for 45 minutes twiddling your thumbs and then giving the 10-minute update. It's you saying, hey, I can come in for 10 minutes and give an update. You know, would you like me to come in at the beginning of your meeting? Would you like me to come in at the end of the meeting? So that way, I remember there was one week where I hit 4 different stakeholder groups in 1 week. And it took me less than an hour. And that just incredibly raised my visibility, incredibly raised my visibility, my credibility, my influence with all these different stakeholder groups. Because now I'm being positioned as a leader in this particular problem-solving area, or a mentor, or a coach. Okay, let me check in, see how you guys are doing. And I'm sorry I have to like do this in order to see the chat box. So, okay. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Okay, I will answer questions at the end. And the reason I do that, let me explain the reason why I answer questions at the end. Because, you know, I know that as a project manager, program manager, people manager, I know you don't have much time. So I want to just make sure everybody gets all of the tips they can. And then if they want to, you know, get off the webinar, get off the call, they can do that. So that's why I leave the conversation and kind of the details and the specific and kind of drilling down to the end. So that's why. But I do want you to ask questions. Feel free to ask questions. Okay. All right. Now I have to take another sip of water. So sorry. Again, it's water. Okay. So let's go ahead. Let's move on to power strategy number 3. Now, as your leadership coach, you know that I'm going to challenge you. Okay. So what I want to do, what I always want to do, is I want to support you. I want to encourage you. I want you to be your best. I don't want to scare you so bad that you never come back again. But I do want to nudge you. And so part of what helped escalate my career, and I've seen escalate the career of my clients over and over and over, is when you start being portrayed as a leader or as a mentor and as a coach in a specific mastery area, internally and externally. Internally and externally. So I want you to think about, you know, asking your manager, hey, can you share some of these tips? Maybe it's repurposing your update. Maybe it's repurposing that into a LinkedIn article or a LinkedIn post. And again, it's in the spirit of saying, hey, I learned these 3 things in my last project or on my last team. Whatever it is, I learned how to motivate team members, or I learned how to manage vendors, or I learned something really important about stakeholder management. Whatever it is. Can you put it in a LinkedIn post or write a LinkedIn article? Again, ask your manager first, because you don't want to, cross the line with any kind of IP. But thinking about publishing articles like that. And another thing you can think about, is, can you speak at an event? So somebody proposed this idea to me the first time, and I just said, absolutely not. I remember it. His name was Mark. And what happened is I went to PMI, Project Management. They have this global symposium every year. It's a huge event. And they just happen to have it in Colorado, which is in the United States. And I went to it. And so the first year I went to it, and I'm like, wow, this is an awesome conference. And I saw that there was somebody that I didn't know, but he worked at the same company that I did. And he was speaking. And so I just happened to meet him at like this networking event. And I said, oh my gosh, you're speaking tomorrow. And he goes, yeah. And I said, I'm going to come see you just to support you. I wasn't even interested in his topic, but I just wanted to support him. So I did that. And then afterwards we were talking, and he said to me, that I should speak at the event. I should talk about career strategies and leadership strategies. And I'm pretty sure I laughed in his face, because at that time, this was a few years ago, nobody had even really heard of a career coach or a leadership coach. I mean, it was just barely on the cusp. And I said, what do project managers need? And at that time I was a project manager. But he's like, hey, you can laugh at you want. He goes, but I really think it'd be helpful. So I told myself, I said, if he mentions it one more time, then I'll pay attention. But it was so out of my comfort zone and so scary to me that I brushed it off. I'm like, so I laughed at it. So when we came back, and we actually came back like to work, a few days later, I ran into him in the hall or something, and he brought it up again. I was almost mad, because it's like, oh, doggone it, now I have to pay attention to him. So I said, I tell you what, he said, look, Sherri, he goes, I'll tell you exactly how I proposed. I think you have to put together a proposal or an application or something like that. And so he volunteered to help me through the process. And I said, okay, I'd love to take you up on that. And so I followed the process. I did everything, and PMI chose me to speak. So it was out of my comfort zone, and I was probably pretty bad. But that's when I really, really embraced the notion of, I have some things I've learned. I have some things that I've done in my career that have really helped me. And so I just thought I'd share those with you today. And I've really learned that when you come at it in the spirit of that, whether it's writing books, whether I'm being interviewed in the media, whether I'm going on stage, it really helps me calm down in my mentality. And I think it really helps my tone and approach when I'm doing that. So I just wanted to share that with you, that maybe start looking for different kinds of events where you could share your topics. I absolutely believe that public speaking is one of the ways that catapulted my career, just catapulted my career. And the last thing I'm going to share with you is that I've really found that people are so nice and people are so kind. Even though I was probably pretty green and really wasn't a good speaker when I spoke at the PMI Global Symposium, they invited me back. I've spoken multiple times, and the survey comments were really, really kind. So I find that I get 100 times more positive comments than negative. So I just wanted to share that with you because I want to encourage you to do that. Okay, so we made it through. Thank you. So just so you know, this is being recorded and I'll post it on my LinkedIn profile. So if you're not connected with me, you might want to do that. So I'm Sherri Thomas of Your Leadership Lab. And then I'll give the link also to Lee Lambert, and he's just terrific about promoting it to his community. And also, if you can share it on your LinkedIn page, that would be great because I just want to help as many people as possible. So that would be great. So, all right, so that's it. And let me go ahead and let me start looking at your chat. Let me start looking at your chat. So, uh-oh, okay. Okay, I'm back on. Let me do this. Hold on. Okay, good. All right, so do you have any questions that I can answer? And by the way, thank you for all the DMs and thank you for all the questions that I get. I do respond to you, and I do love all the questions. So anything I can answer for you today? Okay. All right, so let me say goodbye. Feel free to DM me. I know it's tough to chat on a chat box, especially when it's being streamed and it's live. So I totally get it. I will look for your DMs. I will answer them. I hope you have a great day. I'll be back next